All right. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, TAP 2016. I thank you guys all for coming. It's an exciting day for Button. It's one where we use this moment as a focal point of our year, not only to invest in building and announcing the technology that we've invested in over the past year, but also as an opportunity to talk about a lot of the trends that we're seeing being in this industry. It's a little bit of counter-programming to Adweek. Obviously, it's not a coincidence that it's held at the same time. But what we think and what's important is that we share what we're learning, not only from our big partners that represent the largest brands in commerce, but also from what we're learning with the largest publishing companies that are out there. The companies that are seeking and battling in this new mobile environment to find the way that they're going to chart their future and their course. So we talk a lot about mobile monetization at Button. When we talk about it, and in most cases, as many of you know, mobile monetization often comes at the sacrifice of user experiences. Now, most of the experiences that you and I know from our own frustration using most of the apps or websites that we interact with, you often see experiences like this. Dominating screens, popping up, oftentimes having your Candy Crush roller at the top of whatever beautiful app has been designed or websites giving you the content that you want. And frankly, we know that this isn't something that consumers love. Not just because we as users don't like it ourselves, but also because of the data behind this. What you see now, 83% of consumers want and talk about their preference to have ad blockers on their phones. 25% of consumers actually do. Now, this not only poses a problem for the publishers seeking to build a monetization and revenue story, but it's also something that shows that consumers are finally standing up and saying, hey, we're intolerant of what we've been fed, and we want something better. You look at the paradigm that publishers are battling in today, and it's also challenging in that the landscape and the monetization is changing. If you think about the monetization today, what it looks like in mobile, it's performing at 2.5 times below on a revenue per page basis what you see in desktop. And I'm giving you guys some data points to talk to some of the challenges that publishers are facing and how they're addressing them. So when you think about the landscape shift, everyone talks about the mobile revolution, how tides are changing, mobile time spent is becoming and far outpacing what we see in desktop. And because of this, and because of that growing audience pool, you have to think about your strategies for how you address this shift. And with the lack of performance and the lack of great experiences, it's provided a ton of challenges for publishers seeking to build a way forward. You think about that same data when you're talking about the time spent, and you look at what we call the big gap. And that big gap is what's seen today between the spending in desktop and the spending in the mobile environment. Currently, that gap exists, and there haven't been solutions that narrow or have been built to bridge that. And today, in the mobile environment, of all the revenue that's being created, 90% of those incremental dollars are going to two companies, to Google and to Facebook. And we don't think that's right. We don't think that's right for a variety of reasons, but we know that publishers need a better answer. They need a solution that they can rely on. And frankly, as companies looking to advertise and to attract users, they haven't shown or seen the efficacy in what they've been building into to date. So now talking about the shift from desktop to mobile, there's also another paradigm. What you think about now is how mobile web and the mobile app dichotomy is another challenge. You think about how, in today's world, mobile web sessions still dominate in terms of total unique visitors. And in reality, that isn't because of anything other than this is the top of the funnel. This is where people browse. They don't call it a mobile browser for nothing. And you think about that, and you think about, in this case, this slide and the data shown here, we talk about the number of properties that have over 5 million monthly active users in the United States. You then start to think about it, and what's interesting about the app world is that although it's not winning in terms of the total number of sessions or the total number of uniques, what is interesting is it's winning the battle for time. It's also winning the battle for dollars. And so what's interesting about that is that as you think about this, and as you think about the challenges that are being posed, what you have to understand is how can we take what we're learning from the app world and apply those strategies to your monetization and to your future as publishers. And you think about this, and you think about how apps have become the most dominant form factor for driving commerce in mobile, and you see it in statistics like this. 370% the conversion rate you typically see in mobile web is what's represented in apps. Now, this is led, of course, by companies like Amazon and Uber and a lot of the behemoths out there. But at the same time, you're seeing the retail categories dramatically increase their investment in the app economy. If you sit and you think about the data and, again, macro trends that are facing all of the commerce companies out there selling products and services, but in addition to that, the publishers that are seeking to develop monetization strategies, you have to understand some of the macro points on what's happening in terms of consumer spending. Today, the physical retail world growing at 2 to 3% year over year. Been the same kind of boring numbers for a while. E-commerce, growing at about 15% year over year. A little bit better, a little more exciting, but where you're seeing the most explosive growth is in mobile. Mobile web showing growth of 40% year over year, and mobile apps growing at 70% year over year. And what's fascinating about this is that this is being led because one thing permeates all the lessons of today's talk and also the data I'm sharing. Experiences in apps are best. That's what's been proven. Based on the conversion data shown, based on what users' preferences are, based on the time spent, apps are providing the best experiences. And so as we were looking at this data and understanding that not only were we talking about the change in the patterns and the form factors of usage, we were also seeing that habits were shifting. So when you think about discovery or you think about intent, many people argue, and I'm obsessive on this point, that intent is the most powerful thing in the world, and if you can tap into that, you can unlock tremendous amounts of value. In the web, a majority of your journeys of intent and fulfilling that intent started here. For those of you that were in the audience last year at TAP, we talked a lot about this, because what it really meant was that in the desktop world, often, when you wanted something, you started with a query. Whether it was going on a trip, finding a deal, determining what the restaurant was that you were going to order from, Google was your best place to begin. And now the pattern has shifted. That's not how we use our phones. It's a little bit different. Now, as I think about all the use cases and the various intents that I develop as a consumer, as a user, I open the app that solves my problem best. Whether it's a deal and me opening Ibotta, thinking about a place to go and opening Foursquare, thinking about the trip I was going to go on and opening hotels or TripAdvisor. In all these cases, something's changed. I no longer begin those journeys at that one singular nexus of intent. And so seeing the world that way and through that lens, not only as students of data and pretending to be really smart, what we also knew is that our patterns as users were changing. And so we said, how can we solve the use cases that we, as early adopters, were people seeing and kind of predicting how we would want the world to look? And so with that, we built what we call our app-to-app marketplace. This was something that we actually proudly announced here at TAP last year. And it was something that, when we built it, the intent for us was really to say, can we find the most frequent areas of consumer purchase behavior? The things that people, in other words, wanted most and used most frequently. And could we tap into them and introduce what we think is one of the most powerful models in the world, which is performance marketing, where people pay based on the actions and the behavior and the transactions that are driven. The best alignment of interest that I've ever known in a business model. Users win because they find what they want. The companies that drive the transaction find a new user or generate revenue from that transaction. And the publishers, the sources of that traffic, generate revenue because they gave their consumers what they want. Sounds really good. So we launched the Button Marketplace, and we started with some iconic brands. On this stage last year, we announced our partnerships with Uber, with Ticketmaster, with Airbnb, and OpenTable. And it was really exciting. Uber, our first partner, our first button, has stayed with us the whole time, have been phenomenal partners, and now are becoming, and Button really has become a partnership platform for them to go out and sell partners and bring Button as the connection layer between them. When you think about this, and you think about what we're trying to establish and build, part of the reason that we exist and why this is important is that if you think about how solutions have to be built in mobile, mobile resources, all of you know in this industry, are likely the most overburdened resource pool we've ever had in the digital era. No one has additional or spare mobile engineers. It's one of those jokes with entrepreneurs. It's like, oh, you know a great mobile engineer? Can you intro me? You're like, what? You're insane. There is no chance I'm going to introduce you to someone you could recruit. But the funny part is that same burden falls on building business and building business solutions. And so when you think about that, we have become this interaction layer between places where consumers spend time and where they spend money. And we can build those connections in a scalable way. What's really exciting is that after announcing this marketplace a year ago, we have dozens of new partners that represent all the leading categories of consumer spend. From jet to box to spring and fashion, there are phenomenal companies that are allowing us as a platform seeking to give users fulfillment of whatever their intent may be, whether that's buying a product, going to a restaurant, riding somewhere, or booking a hotel. We now have a host of options that companies, publishers, can tap into to generate revenue in a way that's likely more thoughtful than putting in a roller for Candy Crush. So, when we think about this, and we think about the intent paradigm that exists now, fast forward, and this was really the vision slide that we gave a year ago, saying that this was how we thought the world looked. And now what you can see is that we're starting to build to that vision. We're able to share that some of what we predicted is coming true, but most importantly, some of the companies that we talked to and talked about a year ago when we were setting out on this vision have bought in, and they believed, and now they're reaping the rewards. In the deal category, and when you think about loyalty, you have Ibotta, the 43rd most used app in the United States. Over 20 million users. Those guys today are generating over $1 million a month, over $1 million a week, excuse me, on Button's platform, connected to over 12 companies through the Button marketplace. And the beauty is, when you see the data, the performance right now is showing higher repeat purchase rates on first-time buyers than search, social, or display combined. And so that's pretty cool when you start to think about how you can embed contextual experiences into the places where intent materializes. So now, as we continue to think about the various verticals, whether that's travel, whether that's local, whether that's dining, Button has in its marketplace a solution for all of these different channels. And as users, we know that this is the paradigm that we exist between and that we are tapping into ourselves. And frankly, it's providing not only a new monetization source for these companies that's incremental, additive, doesn't have to be competitive with ads, it's just something on the side. And the beauty is, it's working. The fun part, and what we can also share, is that today we've announced our partnership with Gas Buddy. They have over 15 million users. The CEO likes to say that they're bringing the fun back to gas. He's a good friend. But what's exciting is that there are moments of intent that are established in various places. And if you, as a publisher, can think about ways to deliver and predict or be thoughtful about what your consumers want to purchase at any given moment or what they want to do, you can embed actions in those experiences, not just ads. And if you can do that well, we know from the data that we've seen that this can work and be a powerful revenue stream. Folks like The Infatuation are now on the platform. And as we see these innovators, what's fun for us is that as we thought about building this business, we knew that if we could build the connection points, tapping into the most prolific commerce companies and categories, that if we did that and established that, that we would have innovators be able to come to us and say, I've got this great idea. I've got a concept where my consumers are going to be talking about this or consuming this type of content. And now I have a way to bridge that intent that we generate within that content to the fulfillment within the places that convert highest, the app economy. And so what's fun is that every day new companies come into Button with new concepts. Whether they're global companies and building launcher products, building mapping products, building ticketing products, they're all coming into this platform and saying, we've got this new idea that can tap into commerce in a really meaningful way, and it's yielding value that not only speaks to the performance and revenue, but also the engagement within these experiences. So after having some success in the app world, we've proven with our data and the performance in our publishers that the engagement when implementing buttons actually drives higher usage, higher page views within these publishers' experiences. And as we were thinking about it, and thinking about some of the data, when we were looking at mobile web, which was, again, a top-of-the-funnel experience, something where tons and tons of sessions and tons of unique visitors exist, but frankly, that gap hadn't been closed to maximizing the value, not only for the publishers playing in that space, but also for the users. And so what we were thinking about is, how can we build Button and build a solution that, at the same time, maintained our dedication to experience? And so, seeing that users loved our product, understanding that the performance was there, over the past year, we've been investing in trying to build a solution that would help us deliver feature parity across not only the native experiences in Android and iOS, but also in mobile web. And so finally, after a year of investment and time and effort, we're proud to share that with you today. So building for web, it took a lot of effort. Of course, we had to maintain that same dedication to having context be at the center and the primary focus of what we were trying to be as a signal to what would invoke any actions that Button would show. And so with what we've developed, the ability for us to go to various publishers in the mobile web and say, what we want to do is understand the page contents within this device and give your consumers access to actions, not ads. If we can do that and we can do that well, your consumers will take the actions, get what they want, and ultimately drive you revenue. And that hopefully will add value. To do that, the technology required a ton of cool stuff. We had to build the ability to understand a page's contents, understand any of the metadata within that page, any of the links that were referenced within that page, and then based on those data points, take any of that information, read the inventory that Button has from all of its companies that make up its marketplace. All the products on Jet, all the restaurants on OpenTable, all the cars that were available or the tickets on Ticketmaster. And what we wanted to do is understand that, is this content within this page relevant to any of the inventory that we have in our marketplace? And by doing that, we can precisely show the right thing at the right time for users. And our goal, and one of the fundamental truths of Button, is that we choose and opt to not show many more times than we choose to show. And that's because we want to preserve that experience. In addition to that, we had to make sure that our integration was simple. We know that publishers, even though they don't have many different options, there's thousands of companies competing for that little space, that little sliver. And in our case, we said, we're new real estate, guys. We're building something that fundamentally is new. It's not controversial. It has nothing to do with a competitive ad product. What it really looked like is something that was net new and going to drive incremental behavior and a ton of great data. And so making our experience something that was simple to integrate and also something that editors and big digital media publishers didn't have to invest in was vital to us getting to this point. And then lastly, because at Button, and frankly, as we've learned through our own experiences, with mobile, more than any other form factor, the consumer experience, the user experience that you invest in must be at the top of your priority list always. And even though it may not be that you put that same number of ads or the same number of game advertisements inside of your experiences, the truth is that you will reap rewards and dividends of your consumers liking your experiences more if you be thoughtful and focus on those experiences as the top priority. And so Button didn't feel comfortable launching this early. We had the option to launch months ago. But what we knew we wanted to do was maintain that dedication to the user throughout. And so after a year of development and a lot of hard work, I'm really proud to share that in Buttons fashion, as we did with Uber as our first partner, we've picked some pretty good ones to announce today. So Condé Nast, one of the most iconic digital media publishers in the world, and a brand that really, on our side, led us with their innovative spirit and pushed us to get to a level where they were as proud of the product experience that we had developed in conjunction with them to say, hey, not only are we excited about this partnership and the opportunities that it provides, but we're going to celebrate it and help you build partnerships. And so Condé Nast, as a partner today, has the ability to embed and allow buttons to render based on the content, and making their content actionable is something that they not only know will drive great revenue, but hopefully give consumers interacting with those experiences a better experience. And that's what we're thinking about a lot, is just when you think about mobile, can you build experiences that are for the user first? And if that is what you win with, then the monetization is going to be the fun part. Because as users form habits around these experiences, that's where you'll win. So in this case, another partner, and again, one other, for all of you that don't know Button, this is something where we as a platform take in inventory from any of the commerce companies we work with. We can render that inventory across any channel in native, of course, iOS and Android, but also within the mobile web today. And being able to show that and build that makes us, in our opinion, humbly, maybe the best experience that you can have for a monetization solution out there. And the reason we say that is because we built this like a product. Our engineering team is led by two leaders from great consumer companies in Google Wallet, leading engineering there, and product at Venmo. So our dedication to the user experience has always come from this user mindset. In addition to Condé, we have the privilege of announcing that Huffington Post is another partner. Tim Armstrong is a personal idol of mine. I met him once and I was shaking. I was so excited. But having them come behind us and bet and believe in this, and again invest in our product and our partnership, was something that showed us that not only are the companies that are in the app economy thinking about user experience as monetization, but so are the biggest and most innovative businesses. Again, the same type of experiences where Button naturally is reading pages, simply understanding the context of those pages, and then showing the appropriate buttons that we can when we think it's right. And then, maybe the most exciting, well, it's hard to say, most fun, but one of the most fun teams in the world to work with are the folks at PureWow. They have been just a delight, and again, one of the leading and most up-and-coming media brands that we know, and another launch partner for Button. And what's fun is that the experiences here and what we're building is building in this revenue stream, but as we've seen in the app world and are starting to see in the web, the consumers are forming habits around this to change a little bit of their behavior. And having done that and tapping into this, the opportunity with this environment is something that's different. The gap hasn't been filled between the amount of money spent in desktop and the amount of money spent in mobile, because a lot of the solutions that were built for desktop haven't made it here. One of the most exciting business models in the world is the ability to tap into performance and transactional behavior. And by having the ability to tap into these frequent spend categories, one thing that you don't realize until you do this is that these are the only uncapped budgets that exist. So having uncapped budgets where you can literally send traffic and there's no limit as to how much money you can generate, it's one of the most exciting future opportunities that we see coming in mobile. So for us, we've talked a lot about how we define Button, but I think what's helpful is hearing how other people talk about us. So Gina, our wonderful partner at Condé, provided this quote, and I wanted to share it with you guys today. Incorporating buttons allows us to connect the dots for readers, providing them an easy way to go beyond inspiration and into action. Fundamentally at Button, that was always our goal, was to give consumers anything they wanted at the touch of a button. Having the ability to do that, and on behalf of all of these iconic brands, it's something that we think the innovators are showing their investment in the user experiences, and we're thrilled to be a part of it. So for anybody that wants to see button, test it, play with it, and understand how it works, come to our website. It's pretty easy to do. And the thing that makes it cool, in my opinion, is that you can take that same level of dedication to experience and provide that inside of your apps, inside of your mobile websites, without the time and effort that's typically required to build this high fidelity of an experience. And that's something that we've invested tons and tons in. And so to build a button, it's pretty much this easy. You come in, you select what use cases you have intent for inside of your app or your experience, and immediately, at the click of a few buttons, you're ready to go. So thank you all for having me here today. I appreciate all of you guys coming. This has been an awesome TAP conference, and we look forward to collaborating on building the future of mobile with all of you. Thank you.